Students come to Telos U with a number of different possibilities in front of them. One of the biggest questions that many families have is my student going to make it in college? Or how do I know if they need to go another direction? This is often a very emotionally charged question, and there are some principles that can help us along the way. So let's dive right in. So, one of the things to be aware of is that as each of us become parents, we are entering something which is a journey unlike we have ever experienced before. One of the things is as you begin to realize you're going to become a parent, you start having all these hopes and dreams that develop about your child. You imagine where they might be, what they might do, the experiences they'll have in their lives. You spend a lot of time visualizing and you become invested in what you're seeing. It's just human nature. It's natural. You play out 1,000 different possibilities. And most of the time, what we do is we're playing out possibilities that are good and positive and happy, hoping that their lives will be better than the lives that we've had. And so, in many cases, some of those hopes and dreams will match up with what your child is actually going to experience. And in most cases, there are at least some of those hopes and dreams which don't materialize the way that we believed that they would, even in the best of cases. But there are a lot of different reasons why even things that would seem like normative hopes and dreams might not materialize the way that we thought they would. And when that's the case, this can precipitate an emotional crisis. One person defined disappointment as the gap between expectation and reality. And a lot of times, because there's that gap, it's very possible for us to look at it and to interpret it in a catastrophic way. And it's very hard to move forward if that's what's going on with us. So there's a pitfall for us to be aware of here. When we find ourselves looking at a goal or a dream that we've had for our child, and reality is pushing back harder and harder against us, we can just push hard and say, if we want this enough, if we care about this enough, it's going to happen. Well, it's true. Dreams do require hard work and sacrifice. And anything worth having usually does take a great deal of energy, and there are obstacles to be overcome. So just because we're running into something difficult doesn't mean that life is saying that we need to reconsider the way that we're going. But at the same time, life is sometimes giving us a message saying, this is not the right place. This is not the right fit. You can continue to push really hard here, but this isn't going to happen. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't other very, very good things, equally good, sometimes even better things that could happen. But it can be very hard for us to recognize that the way we thought things were going to be is not what life is giving us feedback about how they're going to be. So, how do we know which it is? How do we know when it's time to work harder, to push more, to learn new skills, versus time to adapt and say, all right, what is this teaching us about what is going to be a better fit for us? And if we do figure that out, if it does become the message that we're receiving, then how do we actually do it? How do we transition? Well, there's a lot of pieces to this, but I wanted to start by sharing a story with you by Emily Kingsley, someone who had a special needs child of her own and went through a lot of different experiences and shared a story which I think connects with the process that many of us find ourselves going through. So she pointed out that when we have a baby or when we learn that we're going to have a baby, it's about similar to planning a trip to Italy. This idea of there's this wonderful place, we know it's far away, we've never been there before, but you've heard great things about it, and you buy books and you look through pictures and you start to learn Italian and you begin to anticipate all of the wonderful things that are there in Italy that you're going to be able to experience, things like the Colosseum and the Michelangelo David, the gondolas of Venice. And so you take some time, you learn what you need to know, you learn Buongiorno, principessa, and you find yourself just sort of immersed in Italy and what Italy is going to be. And it becomes something that is emotionally important to you. And you're very, very excited for it. And as you get closer to actually arriving, you get on the plane, you pack your bags, and you know you're on your way and you're ready for it. And just as the plane touches down, the stewardess comes on the intercom and says, "Welcome to Holland." And your first reaction is, "What? Holland? What do you mean Holland? We were going to Italy. I've dreamed my whole life about going to Italy. I've saved up. This is everything. I don't have the money to go to Italy now. Now I'm in Holland. I don't know anything about Holland. I didn't want to go to Holland." But you've landed in Holland, and that's where you must stay. So it may take you a little while to look around yourself and realize, okay, wait a second. I've not gone to some place which is horrible, disgusting, germ-infested, filthy, war-torn. There's not famine and disease everywhere. It's not Italy, but it's not that either. It's a different place than what I was anticipating. So what do? Well, eventually you start to get some new guidebooks and say, well, what is there to see in Holland? What is there to do in Holland? And I guess I have to learn some Dutch phrases because, Italian's really not going to do me a lot of good here. And you begin to slowly take a look at how do you live in and grow and adapt to and maybe even thrive in Holland. And then you begin to meet a whole new group of people and have a whole different set of experiences that you ever would have had. Even experiences that you couldn't have had if you had actually gone to Italy the way that you wanted to. And think about it. Holland, it's a different place. It's slower paced than Italy. It's a lot quieter. It's less flashy. Doesn't get the same sort of advertisement that Italy does. But if you slow down and you begin to open your eyes, you see what's there. You notice things. You notice, hey, Holland has windmills. These are amazing. They're charming. Holland has tulips. Not only does it have tulips, it has the best tulips in the whole world. And yeah, maybe you didn't go get to see Michelangelo, but what does Holland have? Well, Holland has Rembrandt. You wouldn't have seen that if you'd gone to Italy. So yes, there is still loss. Because everyone you know is still busy coming and going about in Italy. They're bragging about the wonderful time they had. They're sharing this with each other. It's something that connects them. And yeah, probably for the rest of your life, you're going to be a little sad that you didn't go to Italy. And you'll have moments where you're thinking, yes, that's where I was supposed to go. It's what I planned. It's what I wanted. And the pain will be real. And you'll never necessarily be happy that you didn't go to Italy. And that might feel like a real and significant loss. But if you spend your whole life mourning the fact that you didn't get to go to Italy, then you may never be free to enjoy the very special and very lovely things that there are about Holland and experience a joy and a happiness and a fulfillment that your life has provided you. Well, you can think about that one and probably draw a lot of parallels yourself. But when it comes to this issue of college or some other path, really what we need to be looking for is a matter of fit. Albert Einstein is a personal hero of mine, someone for whom college actually wasn't a good fit, interestingly enough. And it was he who said, look, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its whole life believing that it is stupid. Square pegs aren't meant to be screwballs in a round hole world. They're meant to find square holes. And that's part of what we're looking for in all of this is what is the right fit? So Telos U offers multiple educational and vocational training tracks for a reason, because different students will have different spots that actually work for them. So your young adult child has a place in this world. They do. A place that's a very good fit for them. And that's part of what we're looking for. And this may or may not involve a traditional college education. So we need to be cautious about not sending the message that if you don't make college work for you, that that's a failure and that anything else you're doing is second rate or a fallback plan. It's very important that we don't have that mentality and that we don't communicate that to the students either. So do not let your expectations and your dreams become an obstacle to your young adult child finding the right fit for them and feeling proud of it. That's a really important thing to recognize is their place is not a place of shame. It is a place of honor. And we need to let them own that. We also need to not let the idea of what is normal or normative get in the way of doing what works. There's a certain degree of pragmatics that we need to adopt in this search. So that being said, I want to give you permission to do a couple of things. It is okay if you find out that things are going a different direction than you always thought and dreamed. It's okay to grieve those old dreams and those old expectations. In fact, it's even healthy and helpful to do so. But keep in mind that as you go through this, grief and loss are not a linear progression. You'll have times where it will loop around and come back, and you'll feel like you're over something, and something will trigger it, and you'll feel it over again. You'll find yourself going through the process in multiple ways at multiple times, and that's okay. But it's important for us to recognize it as okay, this is just me grieving, and it's okay, and it's natural, and it will pass. And I need to not let the grief be the reason that I make the decisions that I make. It's a background experience. It's not the reason to make the choices that I have in front of me. So, we can talk about stages of grief. And again, they're not linear: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Think about the mistakes sometimes we make when we're in denial, or when we're angry, or when we're depressed. That's one of the reasons why we need to be able to say, okay, so this is my grief. But can I take a look at my wisdom and my experience and the other parts of me? And what would they lead me to do under these circumstances? So, how do we decide? Well, there are going to be multiple factors that we look at. We're going to evaluate things like what are your child's interests? What are their abilities? What are their natural proclivities? What are their passions? What are the possibilities? Especially recognizing that what's possible is continuously expanding. There are new types of jobs invented almost on a daily basis. What are the obstacles? And are those obstacles surmountable? What are your child's motivations for doing things? What's their history? What does their history teach us about what's likely to work and what is not? And where do we begin to see them gain some traction? That's an important place to look because that's where momentum is being built up. So there are a few guiding principles to consider. One is in everything we're doing, we're going to be trying to understand your young adult child's strengths and looking at where those strengths can be capitalized upon. One student I know who is a very rigid and algorithmic thinker, and that tends to trip him up in a lot of ways, has found out that that serves him very well in working in things like accounting and economics. Also, we need to have realistic expectations for their accommodations. Just because they are motivated and excited and have some skills does not mean that there aren't going to be some obstacles that need to be overcome. And part of that will be room for some accommodations along the way. We also need to look for areas of education and work that are conducive to these two principles together. So how do they use their strengths? And do they have the sorts of accommodations that would work? There are a number of wonderful organizations out there that understand that some of their best employees also have very specific needs for accommodations. Those places exist, and we try to help you learn what they can be and how to find them. Also, keep in mind that even if your child follows a traditional route, they may walk that traditional route in a very non-traditional way. It's important to be flexible with how things get there and be all right with certain things looking different than what you might have expected. One thing I'd want to encourage all of us to do along the way here is to cultivate a spirit of adventure. Rather than feeling like we already know where we're going and we're going to be angry if we don't get there the way that we thought we would, to go into it as if we're exploring new territory, because in truth, that is what we are doing. So there's a couple of things that we need to do. We need to learn with this spirit of adventure to accept atypical routes and means of getting places, individualized timelines, recognizing that you can't make a blossom grow. You can't make the seasons change. Certain things need time and experience to get to the point where they're ready to unfurl. We need to accept the fact that there will be mistakes and false starts and resets. These are not reasons to panic, nor to draw premature conclusions, but to understand that they are part of the experience. We also need to accept that degrees of success and progress are still success and progress. We need to celebrate them, work with them, and build upon them. We also need to accept that there is beauty in the diversity of skills and abilities in this world, and that what your child has to offer is unique and important, and a part of what makes them someone who is irreplaceable. So, in all of this, we're working to help you and your student develop eyes to see and to not be so busy looking for what you want to find or what you hope to find that we miss what is actually there. Because when we come to see what's actually there, chances are it's better than what we anticipated. That there is a spot in this world that is custom fit for your child. And if we allow ourselves to walk in with that open mindset and open heart, they will find that place. It won't be an easy adventure. It won't be one without mistakes and messiness along the way. But most importantly, when they find that place, it will be theirs. They will own it. It will belong to them. And that is one of the most beautiful things to see, is to see your child come into their own.